Welcome, folks, and welcome all these new names that I also don't know. Take notes. I always encourage taking notes because it's a much more effective way to really ingrain this stuff in your mind. Um, so yeah, although it is recorded, and you can refer back to it. You're always going to learn more if you take your own individual notes. Hopefully, all of your education so far has hammered that home. I always find it so beneficial to take notes. First of all, I'd love to get a sense. Well, I guess first, who is applying to, and you can give me a thumbs up. There's a little react thing, and you can give me a little thumbs up, or I think it can recognize your hand gestures in your camera, even if it's not on, and it will respond. But who is applying to Sheridan College this year for animation? Okay. Four, five, six, seven. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Holy, a lot. Who is just like building their skills generally for potentially landing freelance gigs or having a career in animation or just kind of thinking about, yeah, Paolo, great. Um, awesome. So a little bit less, but still wonderful. Who's applying to other schools that aren't Sheridan? Maybe Seneca, CalArts, for the two of you that can afford it. Gobelins. What about the animation workshop? Hopefully, some folks for the animation. Oh, great. Okay, good. There's so many schools now that I don't even know all of them anymore. It seems like a new animation program opens up every single year, but which is very encouraging despite trying times. Who is applied multiple times to uh, like Sheridan? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm so glad you guys are sticking with it. I mean, everyone knows this, but almost everyone applies multiple times to Sheridan. That's just so common. I applied twice, and I hardly got in my second time, but that is just, there's a small handful of students in my class that I started at Sheridan with that were, that got in straight from high school. It's very rare and for the folks that are going for their just developing their work for their career, you don't even need a degree. Everyone knows this, of course, but it's maybe easier in theory than in practice. Parents want degrees. They love students having degrees and being in a program that keeps you accountable. And accountability is something we're going to be talking about a lot tonight. But it's still just a sort of tradition to go to school. But I have friends that, they did this themselves. They just kind of built their skill. Well, not exactly entirely themselves. They did mentorships or courses online, CGMA, schoolism, things like that. There's lots of ways to do this, but nonetheless, probably most of you, like myself, and like my parents were very keen on me going to college. So I totally understand that that is still a very, very common expectation. Okay, great. So I made a little document, folks, and I'm happy to share this PDF afterwards too. But I just want to, well, I want to help you plan your summer a little bit so that you could be as productive as possible, um, and creative as possible, and also just having a great time while you're doing it because that's something that we can't forget about. Um, it's so easy just to like focus on work, 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 but well, this is going to come up. So first of all, just a few things. So as I said, this is recorded. Feel free to use the chat. I've got it open. You can chat amongst yourselves or ask questions or whatever you'd like. So yeah, please use that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And again, if you want this after the fact, I will just send this to everybody after this call. Okay, I'll probably just post it to YouTube actually. Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, great. So, just a lot of this is going to be review. I imagine that if you're a diligent student, so much of this is going to be familiar. But nonetheless, every diligent student, including myself, I'm always trying to learn and build my skills, needs reminders. And so let this just be a big resounding reminder for everyone. If you or maybe you've been out of school for a while and this is actually like kind of new again, which is also great. So the first thing that I want to mention here is so for summer in particular, it's incredibly important to get some study systems in place. And there's so many different ones that I thought I would chat about, but I don't even know necessarily, like everyone is different, and this what works for one person isn't going to work for everyone. Um, that's why I said try them out. So many professional artists, especially on their YouTube channels, will share like a study plan. And I think it's great to try a whole bunch of different options. I feel the same way about various, diet fads and stuff. If paleo, whatever it might be, like try it out, see how it does in your system. That's the only way to really know how something is, even though it's, talked about so much. So if there is so many different ways to study to improve your skills over a long period of time, try a bunch of things out, see what works. I'm a big fan of booking time with yourself, almost like because for me at least as a freelancer, it's always so easy to prioritize stuff that is sort of meetings with clients or meetings with teachers, things like that. Anything that has like a hardness to it, it's easier to put that in your schedule and to treat it seriously than your own self-study. This is such a common thing, right? And it's so unfortunate. But it's like anytime we're working on our own personal project or just trying to build our skills or learn in a broad sense, um, we don't prioritize that. All the seemingly immediate things are prioritized first. Your job, taking your sister to work, walking your dog. Well, all those things are important too. But nonetheless, like the personal work and your own schedule with yourself needs to be booked into your calendar. So important to actually like make time in your week where it's going to be dedicated to certain tasks and study. And that leads us into the next one. And so structure. So structure and accountability are just so important. I cannot overemphasize these. The structure is kind of how it all fits together, like how you're going to be studying on a weekly basis. Maybe one week you'll be focusing on anatomy, another week you'll be focusing on drawing hands, another week you're going to be working on character rotation. But yeah. So, anyways, leading to the next bullet here, alternate between analytical study and creativity applying projects. So, I hope this is somewhat self-explanatory, but nonetheless, analytical study is things like, well, yeah, like I said, studying anatomy, going through Bridgman's books and drawing from that. Um, yeah, like anything similar to that. Doing if you're really into color and visual development, doing painting studies, things like that. Like that stuff is the analytical study where you're often referencing or copying from something else, from some real life reference or photo reference or even another artist's work. That kind of thing is the analytical study where you're learning directly from a master or from a real thing. Creativity applying projects. This is something like, making your own comic, making your own short film, doing a single scene of animation. Oh wow, there's so many folks I recognize here. That's so wonderful. Hello, everyone that we've maybe chatted with many times. Um, so yeah, the creativity applying projects are basically all of the personal works that you're going to submit for a school like Sheridan or Animation Workshop or Gobelins. Those are a little easier to force yourself to do because it's generally fun. You're making your own stories, you're writing your own ideas down. You're kind of picking out you're creating your own scope for your project. Scope is something we talk a lot about in freelance in terms of the size or the how big a contract is or a project. And often it can expand, which is something called scope creep, which is probably something that everyone is familiar with, even if you don't know that term. But so a creativity applying project is when you're taking your analytical study that you've learned, life drawing, anatomy, whatever, and you're applying it to something directly. And you need to switch between these two things, not just because you need to learn both of them, but because it helps to keep you fresh. If you're ever feeling that feeling of just being stuck or stale, artist block, writer's block, all that stuff, what I find helps so much is switching gears. It's so important to just try something different. Um, like even within your creativity applying projects, if you've taken on something too big, it's going to be difficult to just force yourself through it. Sometimes you need a couple different creativity applying projects that are kind of in different realms a little bit. One might be a scene of 2D animation, one might be drawing hands and feet, one might be designing a cool building for a story that you're working on. Yeah, absolutely, Rania. Like, can you mix between analytical study and creativity apply? This is exactly what I'm saying. Like, alternate, like, switch it up frequently. For me in particular, I find this valuable. This is one of my systems that I always try to instill is that, like, I'm not just, well, I can't really. I've realized that I can't just force myself to do like 800 head block-ins like Watts Atelier or Proko might say th similar things. I can't really. I can do that some of the time, but then I will burn out or just get tired of it or stop. It'll feel like I'm not learning as much anymore. So you need to then try to apply those things that you learned. I had a friend that was, he was doing the Watts Atelier program. So that's a school in LA, but it also has an online component. It's a wonderful school, very classical, sort of traditional arts education. And they have a great YouTube, Jeff Watts. Many of you probably know him. But anyways, he was doing the online schedule thing, and it was like head block-ins was the first like module or whatever. That was the first thing, head block-ins. So he did like just hundreds and hundreds of head block-ins, and he kept not being able to proceed to the next step. I don't know exactly how it occurs, but they look at how you're doing, and so he was just doing these head block-ins forever, and he was just so tired of these head block-ins that he kind of stopped doing art for a long time. And so that's what I mean. Like you can hit your head against the wall and just keep at it, but like realistically, you need to switch gears. And I find that's where the creativity applying projects where you're and there's so many different ones I could suggest, but like, yeah, I find designing like a cool interior or a cool building with like a cutaway where you take off the wall and we see the inside, or like some props, a bunch of props from a room. I think that's really fun. Any of that stuff that's like the juicy sort of animation feature film kind of stuff or game concept art, I find very fun. That's me personally. I also love 2D animation, so any kind of that will always help freshen me up a little bit. So yeah, yeah. Gathering reference. See, this is another thing. It's funny that somebody mentioned gathering reference because sometimes I find I gather too much reference, and then it's almost like this paralysis by analysis sort of thing where you're just like, it, well, I mean, I have so many of these that I could show you from projects where I just have so many. This is actually an ongoing long-term animation project that I'm working on for a client. And I have so much reference in this folder. This is pure ref, my favorite reference thing. And it's just like, do I actively use all of this? Absolutely not. It is like I forgot that this one was even there, So I sometimes I think with reference, like less is more. You don't need a million references. Even just like a small handful of them are great. However, I do generally love reference. So, yeah, not bashing reference, but it just don't get into anything too much. You need to be able to kind of balance. Balance is so important. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Raven. Wow. Summer job burnout. This is the other tricky thing. I know so many of you will have to work over the summer, or maybe you have summer school or something, and it's so hard to maintain your energy for just like, oh, I'm going to draw for the sake of learning without any direct goal or project that I'm applying it to. It's so hard to do that. Um, you need to do it though. You need structure. So again, the structure piece is like booking time with yourself. Pretend like you're meeting with someone else, be that crazy, be that schizophrenic, book time, book meeting with Garth, so many times a week where you're focusing on building your skills in different areas. And that's the other thing. Speaking of alternating, like each week you should switch it up a little bit, in my opinion. It could branch off from the previous week, but I still think, switching it up is hugely valuable, especially for our modern distracted ways, although that is also part of the problem. So we'll talk about that in a moment. So obviously, for anyone applying to college, this is an obvious one, but focus on any of the requirements that don't change from year to year. So many of them don't change year to year. So all the Sheridan folk that have done it once before, this. The hand drawing. Life drawing is something that everyone should be doing every week, pretty much for forever now. I still do life drawing once a week, and I've been, 15 years graduated from Sheridan. So I think it's super valuable to just keep your skills sharp and you're just continually building. Light drawing is like the bedrock that everything else builds off of. So I cannot recommend that enough. But nonetheless, okay, the other things that don't change every year, character rotation hasn't changed for like 20 years, with Sheridan at least. Again, I'm most familiar with Sheridan, but I do help students with all different schools. Um, the layouts, the two perspective drawings, interior, exterior. Every animation portfolio is going to require some perspective drawings, and that doesn't change from year to year. So wow, there's so many questions. I will get to them, folks, but nonetheless, I just want to go forward through this first. Um, so obviously the personal works and the personal works, well, yeah, I think this actually leads into the next one. So get started on your personal works as soon as possible to start developing stories, themes, and moods that you could use throughout the rest of your portfolio. So I'm a big fan of this because if you're thinking of when you look at the portfolio as each project being this distinct, totally different thing, and this is a portfolio, I mean a portfolio broadly here. So again, not just for college, but even after. Not every single piece of your portfolio needs to be an entirely different project. You can have, everyone thinks about this every year. I get this all the time from students of like, do I need to have a story that like overarcs the whole thing? You absolutely don't. But could you? Yeah, and it might make it a little bit easier because then you have this existing sort of rich narrative. And all of your work, by the way, all of your work in animation should have narrative as the beginning point. This is the thing that drips through literally your entire portfolio is narrative, storytelling, imagination, whimsy. All of that stuff is at the top, and then everything is created from that. So, and stories, themes, and moods, I put those all in the same category. I just, they're all basically what I'm talking about is some kind of superstructure around your portfolio that helps everything feel belonging and feels like it fits in somewhere into this thing that when they see it all together, it's more than the sum of its parts. They wonder, wow, like this student has a whole story that they're developing on their own without even being in school. That's incredible. Wow, that makes me feel like they should take this program and get the skills to develop it even further. That's what they want. They want students that have stories in them that they need to get out. So super, super valuable to have something. But again, if that's too much or you're feeling like you're forcing it, like it's contrived to try and get that narrative in place, don't worry about it. You can have obviously all another thing is that you want to show a range of different artwork. So for example, if you're going to do a bunch of background designs, a bunch of different setting concept arts or something, then even if it's within one story, I wouldn't just do a bunch of buildings. I would choose a building, a natural setting. You want your organic and hard surface shapes. You want it to show maybe a different historical eras to get that broad range of design. They don't want to just see like, I can only draw this thing. They want to see I can draw anything that you throw at me. I will be able to research, reference, find out how it works, and provide you a convincing iteration of that thing. That's what they want to see, which is kind of wild because it basically means that concept artists or animators need to sort of masters of everything. You need to kind of understand how everything works. Vehicles, spaceships, but it's not like you need to know how it all works. You just need to be able to plausibly design something that looks like that thing, which is where reference comes in. So create a critique group. This is part of why we have our Animation Tutor Discord and the Sheridan Hopefuls Discord. These things are so useful for folks. So absolutely create a critique group and actually meet regularly. Like if you're the one that's just like banging on everyone's door, forcing everyone to meet, that's great. Those are the folks that are probably going to be the ones to get in. Just like in the group projects in high school, everyone remembers those catastrophes. The people that are like, trying to get the meetings to work and everyone to do their part. Those are the people that are leaders, and Sheridan wants leaders, and other schools want leaders, and the animation industry as a whole wants leaders, or at least people that can have narratives and stories that they want to tell, which is a form of leading in a way if you think about the role of the storyteller. And we have these wonderful, so we just started these in May. We have our free monthly art challenges in our Animation Tutor Discord, which is super fun, and I love seeing everything that's coming in. And the nice thing about this, aside from just like, oh, cool, we have prizes, discounts on various courses that we offer, but it's just fun to see the artwork ultimately, and that's kind of why we started it. But beyond that, just like, okay, it'll get you making some art every month. It helps you think about design challenges beyond your own mind. And I find this is where a lot of students get stuck, is that they think like, what stories, it's sort of a few different things. It's like, what stories do I like? What stories have I seen recently or participated in some format, be it a game or whatever? And I think like if it feels too alike currently existing media or recently existing media, it can feel too like you're more of a fan of animation versus somebody that's serious about it that wants to make their own stories. So you don't want to appeal to the whole fan mentality of animation, which, everyone is a fan of anime. It's such an incredible medium. I love animation, and many people, all of you probably do. Um, so this is like there's something about like thinking about things that you wouldn't normally think about, writing stories about things that you wouldn't normally write about. This is why reading, if you're readers, or if not, I highly recommend that you also read stories, read books, read folk tales, read old fiction, modern fiction, historical fiction, like sci-fi, whatever it might be. You read things that help stimulate your imagination, so that you can think about stories and ideas that aren't just like, what does my current world exist of? It's great to take inspiration from real life. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of that. But, you don't want to just make your character you or a version of you, a shy teenager. It is so hard to make that stand out. I've seen them all the time, or like a cute witch, something like that. It's hard. It's a saturated area, right? Everyone does something like that, so it's very, very hard to carve out your own niche within that. Um, Animation. So I'm not doing these questions in order. I just saw one pop in, so I'm just going to answer this. Animation studios expect us to copy their art styles. What is the point of creating? I'm not talking about creating your own style necessarily. Style is a whole can of worms, but it's not like a. I'm not talking about the drawing style. I mean like story. If anything, I'm talking about like story style. The sort of, again, the superstructure style, I guess. Like, what is the like I different historical eras, really interesting sci-fi story that feels a little bit new and different, a biopunk story. I don't know, just something that feels like, oh wow, okay, I don't see this all the time. And I know it's hard to do that. Everything sort of already exists. It's very hard to carve out your own little corner within those, like the currently existing stories. But trying to break character archetypes, trying to make characters that are not black and white, trying to make characters that when we look at them, we immediately see in their face, in their lines, wow, there's a whole personality in this. And so one of my first exercises, just as a little segue in my world building and character design class, is like looking at some currently existing movies, and caricaturing some of the characters in it, because there's certain directors, Wes Anderson, Coen brothers, Paul Thomas Anderson, that make these personalities in their movies that are just like they are already animated. They're already like such vivid cartoon, like they're sort of exaggerated versions of real life, or in some cases not. Sometimes you do find people that are like exactly like them, but nonetheless, like those characters that just by looking at them, you can get this sense of like, wow, this really belongs to this some kind of larger story that I want to know more about. That is something that is hard to do, but it's something that you need to aspire to do. William Dafoe absolutely looks like a caricature. His cheek lines could like carve into stone. Anyways, don't get me started on William Dafoe. So, anyways, so the critique group has accountability. Your different study systems give you the structure, and you need both structure and accountability to thrive in the quiet moments when you're working by yourself, because most of the time you're going to be working by yourself. So if you can create your own structure and accountability, that's amazing. Okay, let's talk about onward. I swear I'm going to get to your questions in a bit, folks. But anyways, so beyond just July and August, these are things that you want to get started on now. Absolutely. But here's some things to continue. So end your summer with some of your personal works completed or in a fairly good state, aka 60 to 80% of the way through it. That's maybe a bit aspirational, but it's, even if you have to redo so much of it, it's still good to have done it once to get that out of the way, to clear your mind about the project and proceed with focus that you didn't have before. Um, and yes, absolutely, this will be a recorded Zoom meeting. This is actually going to go up on my YouTube channel, so don't worry, Sydney. Um, and it'll be posted all around, don't worry. But yeah, so the personal works are these, they're always left to the end, right? It's usually this gathering process in sort of mid to late February, right before the portfolios due, of gathering things and trying to make it as like full as you can. I recommend doing personal works in the summertime because as soon as the year starts, I find everyone is focused on the requirements, and that takes a lot of time. The more you can get started on everything sooner, the better, obviously. But in the meantime, the personal works, they're not going to change, and they're usable for every single portfolio that you're going to apply to. So, sorry, every single program, every single animation program that you apply to, you're going to use those personal works for. So it's super valuable to just, that should be your goal. And you should break down that goal into small little bite-sized steps. Look up SMART goals. I'm a big fan of it. Probably you hear about this all the time in schools, probably ad nauseum, but nonetheless, SMART goals, specific, achievable, etc. There's a way of making goals that make it a little bit more manageable, so that it's not just this giant mountain. The mountain consists of a whole bunch of little steps to get there, right? That's what you want to do. And so that's how you look at your like list of personal works. This is what I work with students with on all the time, is making those personal work goals and then breaking it down into smaller steps of how to kind of get there. And while you're doing that, you also have to fit in your analytical study, as we talked about before over here. Um, where is it? Oh yeah, it's right here. There. Okay. Modify the systems that worked over the summer to accommodate your school gap or working schedule during the year. This is also super important. Just, hope your summer's sort of like a trial and error of like, okay, it works when I book meetings with myself. Okay, great. I'm going to do that. I don't have as much time on the weekends as I thought I did, so I'm going to do it during the week. But maybe during the school year, maybe a lot of you have school that you need to go to, or work or something during the day. So then it's like, how do you fit this in? This is a hard challenge to crack. You need to fit it in though. Maybe you work slightly less. Maybe you work one less day, and that extra day you work towards with an equal zeal that you would towards your work, but towards your portfolio. It's so common that we don't prioritize the portfolio as much as, work or school, right? That's just so common. But you need to. So it's, yeah. Okay, continue to fluctuate your studies to develop many skills in tandem with one another. Many roads lead to Rome. This is a wonderful expression I use all the time because there is many ways to get there, and you'll realize that certain structures work for you better than others. Some people like little bursts, like little half-hour bursts every day. Some people like to just go deep into it, just a couple of times a week. So, and maybe you alternate that. Maybe no single system works for you consistently forever. Maybe you need to change that up from week to week. I'm not sure. But try to build that. But again, like I said, test it over the summer. Okay, here's where rubber hits the pavement. When November hits, immediately begin tackling the short animation and storyboards for those that are applying to Sheridan. For many, they are the most difficult. The storyboard is notoriously elusive, which means difficult to achieve, difficult to really, and also difficult to predict in terms of score. At least that's what I find. Right, folks that I worked with this year, this is a really weird year for storyboard marks, I found. So I just found it just all over the map. So anyways, hope that's reassuring to folks. But yeah, I find these, just start them as soon as possible. Very few of you have probably actually done much animation, like short animation. So, if you don't want to be dealing with the technical stuff around animation, and there is a lot more technical stuff, even like frame rates, the size of your document, follow through, like all the principles of animation, things like that. You don't want to be just struggling with that while you're also trying to do it. You want to practice that a bunch and then do the exercise, and then you'll hopefully avoid most of those common pitfalls. And the storyboard, just like get started as soon as possible. Write so many different scenarios. Shoot it or like storyboard it from many different angles in each of your scenarios that you've made. Basically, do a lot more work than you think you need to for each of these. Don't just do it once, do it so many times. That goes for the whole portfolio, actually, not just the storyboard. Beware of burnout. As I've been saying, shift gears constantly, even take breaks away from art, but not away from your imagination development. Let me talk about this for a moment. I briefly talked about earlier the value of reading. This is what I mean by this. Like, you can take breaks from your drawing, your hard sort of artwork that you're doing on a regular basis, your hard analytical studies, and do something like reading a book. And it'll be such a big breather because the other thing is so different. Um, and it helps to build your imagination, especially reading. Watching films and gaming can be this too, but as many of you know, it can be sort of a slippery slope, or like sometimes you're a passive consumer of content versus an active sort of learner, and you're still being a little analytic while you're watching it. Like, and it really depends on the film you're watching, for example. Like, again, like I said, Coen Brothers, oh, wonderful. Some another students here. So Coen Brothers, Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, and so many other directors I should really have a list of these, but there's so many wonderful directors out there that make incredible films that you should be learning from. That's a way to actively engage with this. And that's a great way to actually, even if you're talking about practicing storyboarding, Rania, that is a way to do it, is watch films and really think about the edits, think about the cuts. Even like a storyboard exercise that we did at Sheridan actually was to pause the frame. Jade, you probably remember this from summer camp 2 years ago. We pause the frame and like draw a quick little thumbnail of that scene. I did this for the entire intro to Alien, just by myself to try and figure out, how are these things edited? What are common things that filmmakers are doing? But you need to choose good samples of this. Like, so much of Netflix is mediocre, for example. So like that's going to be generally a bad source. You're going to see it's all going to feel the same after a while. You need to find those lists of like 100 best films, and go through them and start to storyboard some of those. That would be a wonderful storyboarding practice. Quick little thumbnails, no more than like a minute and a half each per frame. And also each frame should depict even movement changing, not like, well, just like if the pose dramatically shifts, you should do two drawings so that you can see, where the director held on one scene. Um, but yeah, so all that to say, films and gaming can be imagination development, but most of the time it's fairly passive. Especially if you're tired while you're doing it, you'll tend to just like it's a way of disconnecting. Um, Technology in general is a bit of a this is why I'm such a big fan of reading, because even reading nonfiction, like I love reading history. History is great because it makes you think like, wow, there was different times that I had no idea about, and they're so vivid and luscious. It's like reading fantasy. That's how it feels to me, at least at this point in my life. And I get so many ideas, like creative ideas when I read history. Yeah, it's great. I can't recommend reading enough. So that's what I mean by like take breaks from your art, but not your imagination development, because your imagination development can always be happening, and actually reading, I find, like gives me more energy to do the drawing work. It like fills up my fuel tank when I'm feeling empty. Whereas like scrolling on your phone is like literally the opposite. It burns you out further. Everyone knows this, and every article talks about this, so I'm not going to go on about that too much. But careful about gaming, folks. Gaming in particular. Me and gaming have had a spotty history, and I think that's the case with many people because a lot of them are made to be addictive. So they're not like you're not gonna you're not going to be productively learning games. A lot of indie games are very different though, and any game that prioritizes storytelling, okay, absolutely, that's different. We can't look at each thing as being all gaming's bad. That's black and white thinking. We don't want to think like that. Some games, like one of my favorites is at least this is a bit old now, but uh oh shoot, what is the Copenhagen studio? Playdead Studios that did does anyone know this? No, no, I can't believe I forgot this. It's like black and white, and it's just like a little puzzle game, but the whole scenery is beautiful, and it's like it's a puzzle type game, but it felt very like creatively stimulating. I think when you play the games that are actually helping you in some ways versus that are just like a way to disconnect from the world. I've tried to literally cut those out of my life. I find they're not helpful. Anyway, huge segues here, but nonetheless, continue to work with a critique group and meet regularly. I mentioned that earlier, but that is so, so important to have a critique group. Um, and this is what I'm here for. Seek outside help when necessary to save yourself a potential additional year of self-study. That's why I created the animation tutor, because I did a year of art fundamentals myself before I went to Sheridan, and I felt, and it still is the case, and many foundational art programs are so broad. This is exactly the criticism that everyone says, is that it's just this general arts program and it didn't necessarily, it helps you in some ways, like you do lots of life drawing. That's one thing I loved about art fundamentals. But other than that, like, let's just say I wouldn't relocate from Iceland, Dagmar, to art fundamentals. I would only do that if, especially if I was international again, if I was going to the program I wanted to go to. So yeah, like it really is. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So anyways, you know where I'm at. This is me, theanimationtutor.com. You can join our Discord for free. And like I said, do the free monthly art challenges. You can just do those and win prizes. And it's been great. And it's super fun. And I'm doing them too. Okay. That's my little document here. So again, probably a huge review, I imagine, but good to be reminded. And let's see. I just want to go through some questions here. Lots of good questions. New to this. 2D animation, burned out from my summer job. Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about that. It will be a struggle to pick up your tablet to draw if you're burned out from your job. Unfortunately, Raven, there's not really a way around like working less. Like you just need to work less. And if you are just managing to pay your bills, if you're living on your own, you have to just be you really have to book that time with yourself or occasionally take like maybe a whole week off or something and give yourself another work week, but of your own choosing, of your own planning, and do plan it. If anyone is going to do a staycation like that where you're kind of like focusing on your self-study for like a good week or so, I highly encourage you to plan that week in advance. You don't want to start planning during the week. Plan that week prior, make at least a rough plan, even if it's going to change. This is how it works for all of my personal mentorship students. I make a bit of a plan, but I don't carve it too far in advance because those things are going to change. So make something, make some kind of structure, but then, leave room for flexibility. Everything is fluid and it should, you should be able to adapt accordingly. Yeah, exactly. Scrolling on Pinterest for hours instead of drawing, that can absolutely can happen. Does it help to take inspiration from artists and apply them to these projects? Absolutely. But as long as, so there's this double-edged sword of taking too much inspiration from artists or having it being an excuse to just live on Instagram, for example. Um, you can use it productively, but you can also totally take the wind out of your sails if you look at too much amazing art. Everyone knows this feeling where you look at so much amazing art and suddenly it feels like everyone is amazing but me, So somewhat, yes, I love taking inspiration from other artists, but you just need to be careful that you're not, yeah, really uh, just making it so that it's not productive for you. When I've drawn applying last year, noticed that it's very easy to feel like it's a chore sometimes when you do it for a while. The super tedious work. I mean, I'm curious, like, what do you mean by super tedious? Obviously, certain things are going to be super tedious, but then you switch gears. And if everything is feeling super tedious, it could be a couple things. Maybe it's not right for you, but more likely you're super burnt out or tired from some other thing. And that's convincing you that it's not right for you. That often isn't the case, I find. This is an incredibly exciting medium. Anyone who, like, even people that aren't into animation or like it sort of passively, when you tell them a little bit about how it works, they're amazed. It's such an easy topic to get people psyched about. So, yeah, I don't imagine that you don't enjoy the work. It's probably that you're burnt out from other things. I would look at things like your game use, technology use, how much you're working, things like that, that might be making everything feel tedious without you really realizing it. So, those are things that I would start to cut back and try to replace with art and see if it feels differently. Um, I know this is a bit of a weird left wing or sort of left out of left field, but I'm a huge health person, and I think like exercise and diet is actually hugely important for your creativity. I know it's like again, it's not most art tutors don't put these in the same thing, but I don't know how to separate them. Like if I'm doing well, if I'm stretching, if I'm exercising, swimming, eating well, eating healthy, it is so markedly different in my creative life and my just long-term ability to maintain this energy that I have. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of things you could consider, Omar. Favorite type of personal project? Ooh, what you should prioritize. Well, Ellie, I'm curious to hear about you. I mean, that's the funny thing about this. Since it's a personal project, I always like to ask people what they like. Like of the artwork that you look at online, what like it's like, wow, I want to be able to do that, like or that's so awesome. That's the reason that I want to do animation. You kind of need to ask yourself those questions, and then I find the personal artworks can kind of emerge from that. Um, to be honest, I'm surprised to not see more comics. I thought I would see more comics in personal works, but it's few and far between. Stop motion. Most of you like drawing, but stop motion is a wonderful medium within animation, and I love seeing the odd little stop motion set or a little stop motion animation, things like that. And it's so easy to do it yourself, right? You just need a camera or phone. It's awesome. Um, so those are some things that are less common, as is 3D work. 3D work is still less common, which I'm frankly amazed at because there's so many. Well, there's Blender, free amazing software that was behind the film Flow this year that won the Oscars. So, I mean, really, everyone should learn Blender, but don't even get me started on that. Okay. Anatomy. So, how do you study anatomy? I mean, I would use a good anatomy book. Sorry, one second. Oh, it's right here. So this is Sheridan's current anatomy book that they use. Let me just stop sharing my screen for a second here. So Classic Human Anatomy by Valerie L. Winslow. It's the textbook that comes with my Sheridan bundle series of courses. So that is a good one. There's a whole bunch that I really like, to be honest, but that is good, and it's a reason that Mark Thurman uses it at Sheridan. It is a wonderful book, and I like how they break down the anatomy, and it's not overly complicated. Um, I like Bridgman. I still like Bridgman. He taught Norman Rockwell. If he taught Norman Rockwell, he's good enough for anybody. There's some funny stories about Bridgman, but he was a teacher in the Art Students League, and Norman Rockwell was a student there. And George Bridgman always taught while drunk. It was a totally different time than it is now, but I thought that was so funny to learn. But nonetheless, his work is incredible, and it's funny because you can kind of see it in his loose strokes and everything. So really funny. But yeah, George Bridgman is great, and he treats the body like a machine and how it like wedges and fits together. And that methodology that he took towards that is very much what you see in a lot of contemporary schools like Proco and Watts Atelier and places like that. So I'm still a really big fan of Bridgman. I recommend just going through his book and sketching directly from his drawings. That's a great way to learn. This is another good one. I mean, this is more direct like for life drawing. I really do like Forrest, and he has got some good ideas in this that are really fresh. Like they're quite. He just interprets volumes differently than a lot of other teachers, and I really like that. It's a bit expensive, but I mean, so are all of these art books. There's so many more that I'm seeing all around me, but we'll leave it there for now. But I mean, moreover, the bigger picture here is like you need to figure out a way to like focus on different things at a time. So it's like, okay, I have half an hour. I'm going to sketch from Bridgman for half an hour. Tomorrow, I've got an hour. I'm going to do Valerie L. Winslow's Classic Human Anatomy, and I'm going to focus on the hip muscles and bones, like what's happening in the hip and how it relates to the rib cage, something like that. I have a whole bunch of specific studies that are kind of tucked away in my courses, but really, you just look at the body and you start picking different parts and trying to draw them from different areas. Look at how the muscles work, look at how it interacts with the bones. This is the stuff that most people hate doing because or some would argue it's more dry, but I love anatomy, so I don't know what anyone's talking about when they say that. Storyboarding. There's some great, I mean, I mentioned storyboarding, like storyboarding from existing examples. So a lot of my ways of getting better at different things is to like look at the professionals, like even character design. Go on Living Lines Library. It's a great website, or character design references, and draw existing character designs. Try on many artists' designs. I always say this. You need to draw draw every single character in Klaus on that character design page. I love Klaus, but also source wider. Source very widely when you're trying to improve your character design. Anatomy will also help with that. Life drawing will also help with that. And also, so will observational sketching from very vivid personalities in the world and practicing caricature. And caricaturing is so critical to animation. And it's so fun as well. Probably one of the easiest things to just do for fun. See, I'm just going down. Book recommendations for creativity. Um, yeah, for creativity, that's a bit broad. There's a couple. Actually, holy, I've got a whole handful here. Um, all of these are the food for all of my courses, but I don't want to make this a book show and tell, but there's a few that in particular I would recommend. This is a common one, Art and Fear. It's a great book on just like an artist survival guide. I mean, how else can you put it? It's quite old, but it's still a lot of people still love this and recommend it, and I think it's great. Very quickly, The Art Spirit. This is it's just full of wonderful inspiration, and it's all these little snippets that his students collected while he was teaching. He's a teacher, Robert Henri. Mastery. This is a great little book by George Leonard about just skill improvement, and he especially makes you appreciate the plateau of art when you feel like you're not improving, and then you have these little aha moments, and then you seem to land on a plateau again, but you don't see the slight incline over time. It's hard to describe this without getting into it, but it looks kind of like that. That's the artist path to learning. It's a great little book. Storytelling, two great books on storytelling by Brian McDonald. So tiny, they're tiny little books. You can read these so quickly. Both so good and have inspired my world building and character design and background design courses so much. So I really recommend those. This I like. Don't read anything else about this guy, but this is a great little book that he wrote, and it's also very tiny. You can read this in a single sitting. It just talks about directing and writing and storytelling, and when is there not enough of that? There's never enough of that. Okay, so those are some. That's I don't know. That's kind of answering your question. Dagmar, great recommendation here. Practice storyboarding by reading scripts and trying to storyboard from that, and then checking out the real film and see how That's a wonderful recommendation. I always forget about that one. Um, yeah, so like rather than or storyboard from a book, I find that fun. Even though obviously scripts for film are written in a particular way to be shot, but nonetheless, you can still do it from books and just like it makes you really create your own version of that. But yeah, storyboarding from writing is great. Limbo is the game I was talking about. Thank you, Sienna. I love Limbo from Playdead Studios, and everything that they make. Again, like that kind of game is just so like I'm just woken up by it creatively. So really, really great. Studying game concept artworks are super helpful. Playing feels more like disconnecting. Yeah, it can. It absolutely can. Um, okay, great. Architecture. Studying architecture, not like studying architecture so much, Sienna, as much as like doing some background designs. Like, I guess that's sort of studying architecture, but it's more inputting storytelling onto your setting. Again, like I said before, the story and the mood and the atmosphere is your meta structure that drips over everything. So, yes, you need to sort of study architecture. I mean, just have some building reference basically, and then make your own version of that thing, and then make it feel like, wow, that's like the such a villainy sort of tower or layer or something like that. It has to be strong story first. Great, lots of Force fans here. Awesome. So, anyways, thanks everyone for coming. Just lastly, if anyone does want help, obviously that's what I'm here for. I help students, I tutor year round, and I got a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Namely, these two clubs that I'm so excited about. That Drawing Club has already started, but you can join whenever. Desra started this week, so you can join these whenever you want. And me and Tyrion, and then eventually more instructors will start teaching each week as well, and we're going to do different drawing challenges every single week. This week it's portraiture. Last week we were designing a concept art for a cool wizard tower mixed with diesel punk. super fun. I hope, Jade, maybe, but I don't know. I hope it was fun. But very, yeah, it's going to be, it's been awesome and it is going to continue to be great. And it's also the most accessible way to study with us. It's 350 for 3 months. So that's 12 classes. So it's quite reasonable. And then Blender Club. So that's our second club. This is another ongoing class that starts in August. Because again, I saw this need where so many students don't know 3D at all. They're focusing on drawing, which you absolutely should. But at this point in where we're at with animation, like everyone should be learning some 3D and Blender's free. So it is just, everyone should know Blender. I really, even 2D artists, it helps you set up shots. It helps you do layouts. There's so many great uses of it. And two of the Blender gurus that will be teaching this have just graduated Sheridan. They've made their films in 3D and they know rigging, modeling, texturing, surfacing, lighting, compositing. Well, maybe compositing. They know a lot about Blender. So, anyways, it's just a great software, and again, I just think everyone should learn it. Next week, actually a week from today, our virtual animation summer camp starts, which is huge. It has 54 hours of instructed in class time with lectures, demonstrations, and tons of feedback, and it takes place from July 7th to the July, whatever the third week of July, or the 7th to the 25th. There it is. It's going to be great. Some of you are in it, and I can't wait. We have a bunch of instructors, and the whole goal of the virtual animation summer camp is to finish all personal work before the school year begins, so that you can focus on the required pieces. So we've each picked different personal pieces for you that we think would be wonderful ideas that would, make your portfolio awesome. And we're going to basically go through each of those personal works through the whole week through three different classes. So there's two classes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and work sessions on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. So anyways, we did this last year and now it's double the size. And yeah, I'm super psyched. And also just the whole, focusing on personal work is super valuable. So at this point in time, like I said. So there's a bunch of other things that you can look at on our website, but nonetheless, for the summer, these are some of our options. You can take any of our one-on-one classes or one-on-one bundles anytime, but this is what's coming up right now. So anyways, the virtual animation summer camp, I mean, the days are actually numbered for joining it. You have you have pretty much this week to decide. It'll probably close on the 4th, which is this Friday at midnight. Fan. Oh no, the fan art question. Um, there is some things that start after the summer, Ellie. Actually, I'll mention this briefly because actually our biggest thing that we do every year, it's our annual program, and it's called the Complete Animation Portfolio Bundle, and it's changed dramatically this year. So for folks that did it previously, it is nothing like it was. Basically, how to even actually, you know what? I'll just show you the actual schedule of it because it is absolutely chock-a-block full of awesome stuff. So let me just I'll show you the virtual animation summer camp and the complete animation portfolio bundle. How about that? So the complete animation portfolio bundle, it starts in October. So October and goes all the way to the Sheridan deadline in February. And basically, this is the schedule. So we have like 14 or 15 different tutors. Every single one is a current student at Sheridan or graduated from. And there is a different lecture every single week on Sundays. And then there's a life drawing session every Tuesday. Actually, this is going to change to Monday because Blender Club is on Tuesday. So life drawing every Monday night. No students are doing enough life drawing, I can guarantee. So the whole goal with this is we're going to finally, I've talked about this for years, folks. I know that have followed me, you know this, but I've been wanting to host online live drawing for ages, and we finally are every Monday for this bundle. So, anyways, very excited to finally offer this on a weekly basis. There'll be a demonstration and a work session where we'll flip through some slides, and the group feedback is going to be every other week on Wednesday. And then Drawing Club. So Drawing Club continues. I mean, Drawing Club is every Thursday from now until I don't know how, hopefully ongoing. And Blender Club will be on the Tuesdays ongoing. So, and this is like, look how packed this is. This is all the way to February. There's a brief break in around the holidays here, but otherwise it is full on until you're submitting your portfolio. So yeah, that's the complete animation portfolio bundle. It also comes with some textbooks that I've selected, and you get all of our online classes. So all of the classes down here at the bottom that I've made, these video lecture demonstrations for, you get every single one as well. So I've really tried to make this thing as awesome as I can. So that's our complete animation portfolio bundle. I'll show you the schedule for our virtual animation summer camp if anyone wants to see that. And some of you are here that are taking it, so I'll give you a little preview anyways. Um, Here it is right here. Okay, so again, there's four different tutors. I'm the green one here. So basically, for each block of classes, so there'll be a morning class on the first week, and Sue Jiang, who some of you might know her, she's in the Sheridan Hopefuls server as well. She's a wonderful, highly recommended tutor, so I've hired her to be part of this. So Sue Jiang is going to be teaching this first sort of class that continues for each one. So for the Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and each of these is the 3 hours. There's time for lecture, demonstration, and feedback. And so again, by the end of the week, in Sue Jiang's class, you should have a personal work that is either complete or very much on its way. And same with mine. So I'm going to focus on background design. I love background design. And then week two, guess what? There's going to be a comic because, like I said earlier, there's not enough comics ever. I always want to see more comics and personal works. So nonetheless, and then we're going to do some color viz dev work. I think this might have changed slightly, but some kind of color work in week two with Soo Jiang. And then in the third, I'm really excited about the third week too, because Juan Carlos is a wonderful student. Some of you might have seen his awesome interview that I did with him last year when he was accepted at Sheridan. But I loved very original work, and he's going to be he has a background in filmmaking. He's actually studied filmmaking at a school in Brazil, so he's going to be teaching a sort of making an animatic. And I'm actually going to attend his classes too because I can't wait to learn from him because he's done filmmaking a filmmaking undergrad and then he's in animation now, so it's like the perfect mix of skills to develop your skills for storyboarding. So anyways, he's going to be teaching that, so hopefully by the end of that week you're in a place where you can start to assemble that animatic, and I'm going to do an animated character loop. So I love 2D animation, so I'm going to be working with you to develop a character loop, which is a nice little personal work to throw in your reel. So anyways, that's the plan for the virtual animation summer camp, which is right here. You can bundle them both together. And with anything, and I expect this, we do payment plans. So if anyone wants to arrange a payment plan so that you can pay it off over 6, 7, 8 months, we're super flexible about this. There's no penalty for doing that. We assume most students will want to do that. So yeah, there's one-on-one bundles down here as well that you can check out. Here's the drawing club. You can get both club access to the Blender Club and Drawing Club here. Mentorships, these are more personal. I won't go into them though. That's good enough for now. Okay, so any questions about anything? We've got a whole bunch of other stuff, but I don't want to inundate everyone. Fan art. I want to talk about that fan art thing just briefly. I guess my question is like, if it's done really well, I suppose, but like, why would you risk it, I guess? Like, they really want to see your ability not just to draw and paint and do artwork, but like they want your stories. That's an entirely a part of the appeal of your portfolio, right? So just doing fan art, it's like, I don't know. I do fan art for social media. It seems to do very well there. I don't know if I would select it for your portfolio. I have seen people get in with fan art and they haven't been penalized for it. But, why? Why would you, if you could choose, why would you do that? It's just not your own characters. So I don't know. It's risky, and the portfolio reviewers seem to change every year. So, I don't know. It's just a bit risky. If it were me, I wouldn't. I would make my own artwork because you're better off showcasing your own stories anyways. A series with no visuals, Dagmar. That's a great question. So if it's a book series with no visuals, I say have at it. Go for it. That's a totally different thing, and I think that's actually a great idea. Like folk tales are a great example of that, or mythology. Read folk tales and mythology. It's so great for your creative imagination, but also there's tons of great characters in them that are so vivid and perfect for animation, which is why Disney made so many folklore stories into animation in the early days of Disney. So that's fair game. That is like folklore and animation are very parallel sort of mediums, I would say. How to protect your art. Oh wow. Um, well, let me talk about that for one moment. I don't know. Has anyone used Rebel, this painting software? I am getting more and more into this software all the time. It's first of all, it's an outright purchase, which is wonderful, um, and and it really mimics traditional materials, which I think is awesome. And you got to see what this thing can do. It is just wild. But I guess what I was actually meant to, the reason I mentioned this is because they have, I'm trying to find it here. They have metallic materials. Look at that. They have like water that can be pushed around. It's crazy. It's like a simulated, like real painting. But what I'm actually trying to talk about here is it has this thing built into it that protects your artwork from AI. And I don't quite know. I'm actually surprised this isn't more. Uh, everything has AI in it. How true. Um, yeah, forget that. It's just everywhere with painting. Um, So yeah, like yeah, there's a cost, but like this is as affordable as it gets, folks. If you want a really high quality painting software that isn't a vampiric monthly payments. I don't know about you, but I'm allergic to monthly payments. I can't stand it. I feel like all software should be optional paid updates. That's it. Um, I don't know where the AI thing is, but there's something about this. I don't know. Does anyone see it? It's somewhere here. It has like this glaze thing built into it where you can protect your artwork from AI. But I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah, this has glaze built into it, Fanny. So I don't really know exactly, but I'm really surprised this isn't more heavily featured here. But and also just like well, I don't know. I I try not to worry about it too much, and I kind of hope that it's going to implode on itself. That's my thoughts about it. But one last thing for me, I was really choosing animation or illustration. Okay, the animation illustration, this is a great topic and one that so many people are not sure about, and I'm actually surprised it's only come up now. But like if you like storytelling in like a very broad sense, so like even children's books, you might be better off with animation. And the reason is you focus more on storytelling. Illustration, the good thing about illustration is that you get a lot of business skills, which is great for everyone because so much of the world is freelancing or remote work these days. So having those skills is great, but probably my guess is they're going to start teaching it in animation as well. But to my knowledge, they aren't so far. But anyways, in illustration, they do give you like, for example, template contracts and stuff like that. So it is a great program. They also spend a lot more time on a life drawing. Like in illustration, they do like a 3 hour painting of a pose. In animation, they do like hundreds and hundreds of gestures, right? And there's fantasy and cartooniness built into it sometimes in third and fourth year. So, story just is the difference basically. Like it's not focused on writing narrative or storytelling and things like that. So even so, a lot of comic book artists recommend studying animation rather than illustration, even though comic book art is technically illustration, because you focus so much on gesture and drawing many figures and learning anatomy so well and storytelling, which is actually kind of more the skills you need for comic books than what they're teaching in illustration. So I have a bit of a bias. Obviously, I studied animation, but illustration also explores medium more and playfulness in terms of your aesthetic in a general sense, like exploring different ways of creating your art style. The art style topic comes up a lot, even though different ways of thinking through your ideation is talked about a lot more in illustration than animation. Um, I like storytelling, but I'm worried my brain is empty of ideas. I mean, that's most of you are pretty young, and it's okay if you're feeling like you have no story. Again, you don't have to be full of stories. It's more that do you get inspired when you read stories, when you watch stories? Does it make you want to be a storyteller? Do you get inspired to draw your own characters and stories at some point in time? If the answer is yes to those, then that there's your answer, in my opinion. I've always been really into storytelling. I love children's books. I love comics. I love animation. I love filmmaking. I love it all. So, and book, yeah, just reading obviously too. Yeah, it is hard when there's so much existing media out there to not just make something different. Okay, my little cheat code, well, it's not a cheat code, but my tip for that, if you're stuck in the like existing material, is to like I know I already talked about this a bit, but really like read history, read folklore of different countries, even like not just your own, just read broadly, and you'll get so many little. I'm reading a great history book right now about the Middle Ages, and we think we know the Middle Ages because there's been so many movies about it, and just like you've seen it in like Game of Thrones, sort of, and things like that. But there's so much more than what we see on the screen and in games even. Um, and so I guess like for me, like you have to go to the books. The books have so much more like untapped material. There's stories everywhere. Even in my small town here, of 500 people, there are so many little historical stories. Every building has a story of struggle and hardship, and I don't know. It's just there's so much inspiration out there. You just really need to open yourself to it. Dagmar, you live in Iceland. There's literally Icelandic sagas. There's so many amazing. I've actually read a lot of your folklore. There's just tons. Snorri Snorkelson or whatever his name is, but the translator of the prose Edda and the poetic Edda, the two origins of sort of Norse mythology. So many Norse myth. Okay, if you're empty of stories, just read Norse mythology. It is so compelling and interesting. And yeah, there's a very accessible one by Neil Gaiman too. I know he's on everyone's bad list, but nonetheless, the book he wrote is quite very compelling. There's like this big pot that spills and it like gave poetry to the world. And as I was reading, I was like, I want to do an illustration of this. So I don't know, stories are everywhere and you can just make your own versions of things. Also realize that no story is like really truly original. So like the whole Avatar is Pocahontas thing. I was kind of annoyed at that because yeah, it is, but like so is every other. There's so many stories of an outsider coming into this very nichey community and then being like, I have a new idea, and then that is the one that works. That's not an original story at all, but how you do it can be original. So think more about how you execute it. But yeah, too many stories to tell. That's funny, Omar. Um, yeah, the holidays. There's so many incredible holidays. I have a great book on like different ways that people celebrate the winters around the world. So fascinating. Anyways, um, great. Okay, well, let's end it here. But I hope everyone feels a little bit more inspired, a little bit more able to deal with their summer in terms of some of this stuff that we chatted about. I'm going to post this PDF to the Animation Tutor Discord, and this one again. Um, and also, I'll post the YouTube video of this recording to the Animation Tutor Discord.